Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers in search of creative teaching strategies delivered in the amount of time it takes to clean up your desk after a busy week or back up all your computer files. And don't tell me you don't back them up. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm glad to welcome you to episode 33, which is all about giving you the information and tools you need to get started right away with a powerful teaching option called Genius Hour. Before we get started, I'd like to thank listeners Dana and Cassie, who sent me their wonderful questions about Genius Hour that helped me as I researched and wrote this show. If you have a teaching question, idea, or any feedback at all for me about this podcast, I'd love for you to email me at betsy@nowsparkcreativity.com. Genius Hour is on the tip of a lot of tongues lately, but we've all got questions about it. Like, how exactly could we possibly do it without classroom anarchy? And how does Genius Hour hit the standards that need to be covered? And how on earth would it be graded? This episode is going to answer your questions and give you a roadmap so you can get started right away. Because every student deserves the chance to dive into a project that truly means something to them. School is about empowering and applauding our great kids, and Genius Hour will help us do that. Just imagine how you would feel if your administration said you could take one day a week to dive into a passion that would help you become a better teacher. Imagine your joy. Imagine your relief. Imagine how you'd look forward to that time. Let's commit to giving our students that same gift. Do you find yourself searching for that one project that would truly engage your students? That would empower them to explore their passions? Do you sometimes feel that despite the many ways you are trying to creatively engage them, you just can't reach everyone? Enter Genius Hour. Some call it 20 time, others call it passion projects. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Google's idea of giving their employees 20% of their working hours to work on their own passion projects is sweeping through education like the stomach flu through your classroom, except it's awesome. Before we jump into this episode, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of standards. I know for many teachers, how they're going to cover the content standards required is a subject that they have to focus on. But there's no question Genius Hour can tick off the standards boxes. It's no problem. The question is only how tightly you want to hold the reins. As I looked on the list of ELA standards, the majority of Genius Hours will hit multiple writing, researching, presenting, range of writing, and even college and career readiness standards. If you're worried about the standards, you can always require that students build a very specific ELA component into their Genius Hour proposal. Let's quickly look at an example. Let's say a student wanted to rebuild a car engine for his Genius Hour project. Now, there's something that doesn't seem very ELA related. But what if he started a blog about rebuilding cars? Then he's writing about it, taking photos, maybe making some how-to videos for YouTube, and immediately he has this strong ELA tie-in. If you're worried about the standards and you'd like to have a very specific checklist of what exactly students are accomplishing, one way you could approach it would be to copy John Spencer, an author and video creator whose work I really admire. He took the standards he wanted students to hit and just rewrote them into slightly friendlier learning goals. And then each week, as students checked in about their projects, they would look at which items on their checklist they were hitting and what ones they still wanted to work toward as a goal. So every week, every student in his class would be working toward one specific learning objective, and he knew what standards they were working on. Okay, so now that you know you're going to be hitting the standards, no problem, and you have a few different ways you can do it. You can hold the reins tightly, you can hold them more loosely, you can require an ELA component in every project if you want to. Let's move into fitting Genius Hour into your schedule. There are as many ways to fit Genius Hour into your classes as there are teachers. Let's look at 4 quick examples to give you an idea of their range. You can do this however you want. So, teacher number 1. Fed up with how useless school hours seem to be right around state testing, one teacher schedules an intensive dive into a Genius Hour project for the weeks leading up to testing and the weeks leading out of testing. Teacher number 2. Eager to get to know her students and their passions from the get-go, one teacher introduces Genius Hour on the first day of school, spends the first week with students nailing down proposals and schedules, then gives them Fridays every other week for the rest of the year to work on their projects, wrapping up with final presentations in the fourth quarter. Teacher number 3. When given the opportunity to propose a new school elective for juniors and seniors, a teacher chooses to propose an innovation class built around Genius Hour projects. Students will propose and complete 3 different projects throughout the semester. Teacher number 4. In an effort to fight back the gloom of late winter, a teacher decides to devote all of February to Genius Hour projects, meeting with 5 students individually each day as others work. On Fridays, every student shares their progress in a class meeting. Basically, when it comes to Genius Hour, you can do whatever you want. You can do a miniature Genius Hour in just a couple of days, or you can expand and go for an entire term or year. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so we know Genius Hour will hit the standards, no problem. We know you can fit it into your classroom however you want. Once you've decided kind of the general plan, you're going to want to lay out the basic structure of your Genius Hour unit. And there's one writer, AJ Giuliani, who seems to be such an expert in Genius Hour. He teaches a whole course about it, and he's granted so many interviews and done a lot of posts for different websites around the internet. So as I was researching, I came to feel that I respected his opinions. And so I'm going to give you the layout of AJ Giuliani's Genius Hour. These are the 6 steps that he thinks should be involved in any process, and I would recommend them to you based on what I've learned. So in the first step, the teacher makes the plan. So this is all your domain. You just lay out the timing, you figure out what your key benchmarks are going to be for your Genius Hour unit. The second step is that students choose their topic and they decide what product they are going to create. So they're not just going to learn and then keep all that knowledge in their head. They need to have a way that they're going to show what they've learned. They need to produce something. In the third step, students pitch what they'll be doing back to the class, and they pitch why they'll be doing it. They share how they'll do it, which is kind of a basic schedule, a basic plan, and then they'll say what success would look like for them. Step 4, this is going to be a major part here. Students research. They learn, they read, they do interviews. Maybe they work with mentors that you help them find through social media. They discover everything they can about their subject. At this point, they're going to start documenting their learning somehow. They could make a blog, they could shoot videos, they could record podcasts, they could do written reflections, they could meet with you once a week. Somehow they need to be showing what they're learning. Step 5, students make. They create something, they design something, they build something, they put something out into the world that relates to what they've learned and researched. And finally, step 6, students present on their process. And it's really important that they know it's okay to have had failures. Everybody who wants to do anything has had a failure. And that has to become valuable research in the process. And students have to know that it's okay to fail and that they can build on that. The process and the effort is what really counts. So on your final day of your Genius Hour project, you could have a gallery walk where students have created visual presentations of their work. You could do a visit to the auditorium and everyone could give a TED-style talk. Everyone in the class could create a video about their whole process and what they have created and what the roadblocks were and the obstacles and how they overcame them or didn't. That final day can take any shape as long as students have a chance to share their project back to the learning community. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what the projects themselves might look at. You can give students total freedom, in which case they could be doing anything from rebuilding car engines to starting a small business to starting some kind of social media campaign, anything that they're interested in. But you can also narrow it down a little bit for them and let them pursue their passion within some kind of specific platform. So maybe you say, everybody gets to create a YouTube channel, but it can be about absolutely anything. So you can be doing a cooking YouTube channel where you create recipes and then create videos about those recipes. Or you can be doing a history project where you're interviewing people in your local community who have been to war and you're producing videos about their experiences. Or maybe you're really into gardening and you're going to do a video channel all about creating a community garden in our city to help inspire other community gardens around the world. So if you want to build in that specific ELA element, having every student choose a certain platform, like creating podcasts, creating videos, creating blogs, or even Instagram channels, could be really useful for you just to keep it specific and keep everybody in the same domain. But opening it wide open can also be really amazing because students get to do exactly what inspires them. If you do throw it wide open, you can still give students these really specific benchmarks, and we're going to talk about that in a second while we dive into a case study of one amazing teacher who has been doing Genius Hour for 4 years. And if you do those benchmarks, those can be check-ins with strong ELA components, and that can also solve the problem of how to kind of keep a careful watch over students when they're doing whatever they want. Of course, that's appropriate. Okay, I want to quickly take you through a case study. There's an English teacher, an amazing English teacher named Laura Randazzo, and she blogs, she has a YouTube channel, and she does a lot about Genius Hour, and I'm really impressed by the way she runs her project. One of the key takeaways I have from her is that the teacher should do a Genius Hour project alongside the students. In the first year, Laura Randazzo learned how to play the ukulele, and then she actually played a song in front of the whole student body, which I thought was an amazing product of her work and something that I'm sure students were really excited to watch her preparing for. So let me give you the rundown. She's got 5 simple rules for her Genius Hour, and they are this. Number 1, students should do something new. Number 2, students need to create something. Number 3, they must connect their project to ELA somehow. Number 4, they need to agree to meet with her if they ever feel overwhelmed, lost, adrift, like they need some guidance. And number 5, they should be flexible in making adjustments to their plan as they're working. So pretty simple, 5 rules that she presents them with. And then her process kind of fits pretty well with what A.J. Giuliani says in his basic structure that he suggests. She's got a few simple, clear benchmarks, and that's the basis of how she grades. So every student begins by giving a 60-second pitch to the class about what their plan is. Somewhere in the middle, they have a checkpoint meeting with her where she gets to really dive in with them about what they're doing. And every week when they have a chance to work on their Genius Hour project, because they work once a week in class for 8 weeks, they complete an exit ticket. And this is kind of a check-in where they talk about what they've been up to and what they've completed and what they're still working on. At the end, they do a final presentation which documents their process. And so all this together adds up into their grade. The grade is not whether or not they succeeded in the project, whether or not they produced the exact product that they meant to. It's about hitting these benchmarks, doing the work, valuing the process. And I think across the board in terms of grading, from what I can see, grading the process is essential. You want to have some kind of little benchmarks built in so students can report on their process to you, whether they're blogging about it, making videos about it, doing a journal, having meetings, exit tickets, it doesn't matter. But those benchmarks are where the grading happens, because you don't want to be saying, okay, you spent 8 weeks learning how to paint and you did a self-portrait, but I don't like your self-portrait, right? Not that you would do that, but it's very difficult to put a number on their final product. It's much easier to show them that they are being rewarded grade-wise for their effort and for their follow-through. Before we leave Laura Randazzo behind, let me just say that she has put together a pretty amazing free resource pack. I thought about trying to make a free resource pack for you about Genius Hour myself, but when I looked at hers, I felt like what I should really do is just point you toward hers because it's pretty amazing. 44,000 teachers have already downloaded it. So I'm going to recommend to you that you check it out. I'm going to link it in the show notes. She's got a great introductory Prezi that shows the way really nicely for students. I'm also going to link a video, by the way, by John Spencer. That's a really nice introduction to Genius Hour that you could show students when you're introducing the project. But back to Laura's packet. She's also got project guidelines, rubrics for all the steps, the exit tickets that she uses. Everything is in there, as well as a lot of links to her blog posts and videos where she talks about her own Genius Hour. So if you're looking to dive into this, but you're nervous about your planning time and you just don't have time to lay much out, I think you could use this free resource pack from Laura and sort of schedule this into your calendar in like half an hour. Honestly, she's got everything there. It's really nice. So check that out. Okay, moving along, I want to talk a little bit about what Genius Hour might look like in middle school. I think you could do Genius Hour in middle school exactly like what we've been talking about. If you have highly motivated students who are good at self-directed learning, you could just do a very independent Genius Hour. But you could also tailor it a little bit more to their maturity level and keep it a bit more small scale. So let me give you 3 examples of how you might do Genius Hour in middle school that would be a little less intimidating. So let's say, for example, spend the 2 weeks before Christmas break letting students create blogs on the topics of their choosing. Use really specific post assignments like list post, opinion post, embedded media post, and then let them be discovering and researching and learning about the subject that they're interested in. So you're giving them voice, you're giving them choice, but you're keeping it, you're keeping a pretty close grip on it, right? In this way, you're letting them explore their interests, but you're also keeping the ELA focus really clear, and you're also taking back a chunk of time that's otherwise just really hard to use effectively in school. Right before a major break like that, it's so easy to just give way to some movies or lots of games or whatever because it's hard to keep student focus. So that's one idea of something you could do with middle school students. Another way of doing it with middle school would be to start with them right in the very beginning of the year. Let your students know that you're going to let them dive into their own personal interests with a Genius Hour project every Friday. So throughout the first term, you're going to work on it with them on Fridays, and that way you're going to get to know them. You're going to get to know what they really care about, and that can help to drive your choices in your curriculum for the rest of the year. Let them all do a very specific final wrap-up of the project by creating prezis and reporting back to the class about what they accomplished. Again, this is a little smaller scale. You just work on it for maybe the first quarter, the first trimester. They all know they're going to do a Prezi at the end. You can do some mini lessons about how to put together a good Prezi along the way. Okay, one more idea for middle school. Let students spend the last 3 weeks of the school year on a passion-driven project. So have everybody create a video about the project to post to a Class Genius Hour YouTube channel. So in this case, you're giving them a lot of class time to work on what they're interested in. But again, they're going to have a very specific product that you're going to guide them in creating. You can do mini lessons along the way on how to script a video, how to shoot a video, edit it, and publish it. At the end, you can have the students share their movies outside of class with some people who are important to them and have those people sign off that they did see the movie and maybe write a few words to the students about what they thought of the movie. And then if you want to do a final screening in class, you can do a final screening in class too. But that way you're giving them a pretty wide, authentic audience, maybe someone in their family, maybe a close friend, a relative or a mentor, as well as their classmates. So depending on your results when you start out with your middle school students with one of these smaller scale versions of Genius Hour, you may well want to expand it. But testing the waters isn't the worst idea, and just seeing how your students respond. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about what to do with students who just don't get into Genius Hour. There's a great quote from AJ Giuliani. He says, "Genius hour never fails." But there are going to be students who struggle with it at first or who don't find a passion project that really means a lot to them. And the advice I found for this: keep those students involved in the work of the class. So maybe they're going to take a few days to come up with their project idea, but you can get them maybe holding the video camera for somebody else, or working with somebody on a photo shoot for their blog, or maybe holding tools for the person rebuilding the car engine or whatever. Keep them invested and involved, and let them see how other people are interacting with their passions. You can also, and this is a strategy I saw really highly recommended, try to get to know them better as people. So talk to them about their life, talk to them about what they care about, what they want to do someday, and work with them from there on what they might do for the project. Because until you really know them pretty well, it's going to be hard to know what their passion is. I'm going to link an article in the show notes here right at the end called "What to Do When Genius Hour Fails." And the spoiler alert is that the article is going to tell you genius hour never fails, but it's going to give you a lot of specific strategies. So if you're worried that you have a few specific students in mind that are not going to like genius hour, you might want to check out this article and dive a little deeper into strategies for dealing with that. Okay, guys, I really hope I was able to help you feel confident in going out and starting Genius Hour this year or next year, because I really think it's a fabulous, fabulous option for you and for your students. And it's way more doable than it seems. I think it's a matter of spending half an hour or an hour looking over that free resource pack if you want to use it, and then scheduling it into your curriculum wherever you want it. And if you want to develop your own resources and handouts, awesome. Again, I don't think that's an overwhelming task, because the real bulk of the work here is going to be the students pursuing their own projects. They don't need a million handouts to help them do that. They just need your support and those few really specific benchmarks. Thanks for listening. You can find the show notes, including all the links I mentioned, at www.nowsparkcreativity.com. Just click on the podcast tab at the top of the page and choose episode 33. And if you want to talk over what you've heard and share creative ideas with more than 1,500 educators from all over the world, hop into my Facebook group, Creative High School English. Can't wait to see you there. The Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more podcast recommendations, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.